Hello and welcome. You're watching 6 Stories at 6 with me, Tanisha Avasthi. A lot of developments are coming your way as far as the 12th day of the Iran and Israel conflict is concerned. Let's first take you through the top 6 headlines that we are tracking. A ceasefire that was never. Hours after Donald Trump claimed that he brokered peace between the arch rivals Iran and Israel, he was left with red face with the ceasefire violation in just few hours. Iran today struck the largest city in southern Israel, Beersheba. We have a ground report from there. And Israel vowed revenge. They said that Iran will have to pay back for committing a sin by striking the residential areas. So the question really is, ladies and gentlemen, who really won? Is it Israel, is it Iran, or is it the United States? Meanwhile, keeping in mind the escalating tension, India is getting back Indians from the conflict-affected region with Operation Synindhu in full swing. And finally, we get you the details of the NATO meeting amid escalating tension in West Asia. So these are the 6 stories that we have lined up for you on this edition, starting first up with the top story. A ceasefire announcement by the United States, a denial by Tehran, followed by a U-turn, and then the Iranian missile strikes. All of them together culminating for a ceasefire violation by Iran. This marked the latest development in the 12-day-long Israel-Iran war. It was in the wee hours today when the United States President Donald Trump claimed that Israel and Iran had reached a complete and total ceasefire agreement, effectively ending what he called the 12-day war. However, Iran issued a quick denial to say that no such agreement had been reached, and that only for it to issue a statement later on indicating that the fighting from its side has been paused. Just moments after, in fact, to be precise, 2.5 hours later, these developments, notwithstanding, showed visuals of how an Iranian missile attack on Israel trickled in, with Tel Aviv claiming that at least 4 people had been killed and 6 have been wounded in airstrikes launched after the Trump announced ceasefire. An embarrassed and quote-unquote unhappy Trump had to say this after the ceasefire that was never. Listen in.
Happy that Israel's going out now. There was one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after the time limit and it missed its target. And now Israel's going out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous.
How will you respond if the ceasefire is violated?
I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. Because all I do is play both sides. I'm going now, as you know, to NATO. Some of you are going with me, and I think it's going to be successful. We'll see. I'll let you know.
A major turning point, or maybe just a false hope. In the Israel-Iran conflict, after nearly 2 weeks of deadly missile attacks and retaliations, the United States President Donald Trump today in the early hours declared a ceasefire. But while Trump announced peace, the reality on ground told a completely different story. Missile launches continued, civilians were killed, and fighting carried on. In the past 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen, confusion and violence persisted despite the high-profile diplomacy. Here's how the events unfolded.
At exactly 3:30 a.m., a new post appeared on Donald Trump's Truth Social handle. It was the announcement the world had been waiting for, but never imagined would come this soon. US President Donald Trump declared a total ceasefire in the raging Israel-Iran war. But just moments before Trump's post, Iran's foreign minister publicly rejected any talk of a ceasefire. In fact, Iran's foreign minister boasted that Iran's military operations continued until the very last minute. His message was crystal clear: Iran was not backing down. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei doubled down, declaring that Iran is not a nation that would ever surrender. Even as Iran openly defied the ceasefire, Team Trump doubled down on its narrative of victory. Trump claimed that Israel and Iran came to him almost simultaneously, and one word: peace. He hailed it as a moment of love, prosperity, and divine blessing for both the nations. US Vice President J.D. Vance called it a historic moment, claiming Iran's nuclear program has been obliterated. The so-called 12-day war was over, he said, thanks to Trump's leadership. US intelligence chief Tulsi Gabbard declared that only President Trump could have achieved this breakthrough, calling it a Herculean effort that deserved global applause. But here's the reality. There were no terms, no signed agreements, just rapid-fire social media posts. On the ground, missiles kept lighting up Israel's night skies. The ceasefire seems to exist only on Trump's timeline. Iran unleashed wave after wave of missile barrages on southern Israel. Residential buildings were destroyed, civilians were killed. The rescue teams pulling out bodies from the rubble painted a grim picture of the so-called ceasefire. Even as the world clung to the hope of peace, Israel's warplanes were already striking Iranian military targets. Sirens screamed across Israeli cities as the IDF urged civilians to rush into bomb shelters. But soon, missile alerts exploded in northern Israel as well. The Israeli Defense Forces officially confirmed what many already feared: the ceasefire had collapsed. Fresh missile launches from Iran left no doubt the war was still on. What was supposed to end this brutal chapter has only thrown the region into deeper chaos. Trump's so-called ceasefire did not bring peace to the Middle East, it triggered more questions, more attacks, and more bloodshed.
Now, the United States President Donald Trump may have announced a ceasefire, but on the ground, the reality gave a completely different picture, where the Iranian missile continued to hit residential buildings across the southern Israel. According to the rescue teams, the death toll is mounting quick, with search for survivors that are still underway. Here's the story of Beersheba.
The heaviest missiles of the Iranians, it's called Qadr. It's way above 400 kilos. Landed here specifically to kill women, children.
Firefighters scanning the debris of what was a residential apartment before the missile impact. Iranian missiles shook the streets of Tel Aviv today as the fragile hopes of peace crumbled under fresh missile fire. US President Donald Trump announced a complete and total ceasefire between Israel and Iran after Iran's limited missile strike on a US military base in Qatar late Monday. But the reality on the ground tells a different story. Iran's foreign minister had set a clear deadline at 4 a.m. local Tehran time. If Israel stopped its strikes by then, Iran would halt its own. But even an hour after that deadline passed, the missiles kept coming. Israel's military sounded urgent warnings, confirming new missile launches from Iran. In the skies over Jerusalem, Israeli missile defense systems were seen intercepting incoming threats. Soon after, Israel's Home Front Command issued another nationwide alert, warning that yet another barrage from Iran was on its way. Trump, posting on his Truth Social account, said the ceasefire would officially begin around midnight Eastern Time today. He called it an official end to the war. But on the ground, the war was far from over. Israel's paramedic service, Magen David Adom, confirmed that 3 people were critically injured after an Iranian missile struck a residential area. A 7-story building in southern Israel's Beersheba suffered a direct hit. The entire face of the building was blown apart. Rescue workers rushed to the scene. Israeli firefighters confirmed they retrieved 4 bodies from the rubble and were searching for more survivors. For nearly 2 hours this morning, Waves of Iranian missiles forced Israelis across the country to seek shelter as sirens blared and explosions echoed. The launches came after Tehran's deadline, testing the very core of the ceasefire agreement. Trump's ceasefire plan, announced just hours earlier, has now been accepted by Israel. With missiles still flying and lives still at risk, peace remains a distant promise.
Now, in a complete collapse of a ceasefire, ladies and gentlemen, Iran continued to attack Israel. Today, like we just told you, Beersheba was the city in southern Israel that was hit. Let us take you frame by the damage and destruction that was caused from both sides, Iran and Israel. Now, initial reports came in just a short while back on explosions that happened in Tehran in Iran. The visuals of the same are on your screen right now. The report said that the Israeli Air Force has carried out a symbolic airstrike in the north of Tehran. Firefighter jets are now returning to Israel. Meanwhile, what we also saw is that earlier today, there were 4 people, nearly now mounting to 8, that were killed, and at least 22 others were injured today morning when Iran fired missiles at Israel's Beersheba. 2 missiles were fired at Beersheba in a salvo, with one being intercepted and the other striking the 6th floor of an apartment complex in the southern city, causing extensive destruction. Now, the Israeli military said that it struck missile launchers in western Iran, which were ready to fire towards the Israeli territory. This is a video that was released by the Israeli Defense Forces showing their action. Also on your screens now, you can see the damaged buildings and cars in southern Israel following the missile that were launched from Iran. The residential building in southern Israel sustained heavy damage. The face of the large 7-story building appeared completely blown off. On your screens, you can also see now the rescue services carrying out a body with wrapped cloth on a stretcher. The search and rescue team said that they retrieved 4 bodies from one building in Beersheba and were searching for more survivors trapped under the rubble. Meanwhile, sirens and explosions were also heard in Tel Aviv with the early hours of today, with the United States President Donald Trump announced that Israel and Iran had agreed to a complete and total ceasefire. But the status of a possible ceasefire remained completely unclear as attacks continued. So it's strike versus strike that is still escalating. The situation, rather than getting normal, is only and only intensifying with each passing hour. It was on Monday morning, remember, ladies and gentlemen, when Iran's Supreme National Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss striking back against the United States. The Americans had bombed 3 of Iran's main nuclear facilities with over the weekend. Yet another serious blow after a week of attacks by Israel had inflicted severe damage to Iran's military leadership and infrastructure. Iran needed to save face. From inside a bunker, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei sent an order to strike back, according to 4 Iranian officials familiar with the war that was about the planning. Today, in the wee hours, Trump announced ceasefire. And remember, this was a unilateral decision because neither did Iran nor did Israel issue any statement very soon. It took 2.5 hours, just 2.5 hours, to violate the same ceasefire agreement that was reached. So the question that we are asking here today is who actually won? Is it Israel who claims that they have superiority over Iran? Is it Iran that says that they have struck Israel's core? Or is it Donald Trump who claimed to have brokered the ceasefire, which was violated in just few hours? To give us more insight on this, I'm being joined by Akiva Spiegelman. He is a media and international affairs consultant. Akiva, thank you very much for speaking to Republic. There seems to be no end in respite, of course. Donald Trump has been left completely red-faced, completely embarrassed yet again after he announced that a ceasefire agreement has been reached. And in just a few hours, it was violated. Where do you think this is heading towards?
I think as of now, it's somewhat of a soulmate. We have Iran and Israel. There is no clear winner. We managed to implement strong damage to Iran. We've hurt their nuclear program. We've taken it years back with the help of the United States. I'm grateful for it. With that being said, I don't think the job is done yet. They still are threatening Israel. They still have nuclear ambitions. And as long as they have those two at the top of their mind, there's no end in sight. And even a deal, if were to be reached, it would have to come with a lot of circumstances, with them no longer threatening Israel, not shooting missiles towards Israel, and stopping the nuclear program. Otherwise, there's nowhere to go.
Absolutely, Akiva. Thank you very much for sharing those insights. We look forward to hearing from you again. We quickly move on in the broadcast to the other angles that we're tracking in regard to the same story. Now, in response to the heightened tensions in conflict-affected areas in West Asia, around 2,000 national Indians have been brought home from Iran under Operation Synindhu. Now, the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal said that nearly 300 nationals have been brought back to New Delhi from Iran's Mashhad. Now, a special flight that was carrying them did land today in the wee hours. The Indian Air Force has stated that it remains committed as a first responder to both assisting within the country and across the globe in times of need. The IAF has commenced missions from Jordan and Egypt to evacuate Indian nationals and citizens of friendly countries. Here's what the evacuees said on the situation that they were stuck in.
Operation Synindhu is now underway in full swing. Amid rising tensions in West Asia, Indian government continues on their mission of bringing back Indian nationals home. Tirangas in hand, 286 evacuees have returned back from Iran, which includes 281 Indians, 3 Sri Lankans and 2 Nepalese.
बहुत ही अच्छा इंतजाम था और हमारी सरकार को बहुत ही थैंक्स है कि वो हमें यहाँ तक लाई।
हम अभी ज़ियारतों को गए थे 25 अप्रैल को, फिर वहाँ ये वो हो गया तो उसमें रुक गए। हमारी गवर्नमेंट ने अच्छा काम किया है, जिससे हमें ये वो लग रहा है कि बहुत अच्छा यही होना चाहिए भाईचारा के सब इतने सारे यानी जितने भी हमारे साथी थे वहाँ पे लोग रह रहे थे, कई हज़ार उनको लेकर आए वहाँ से।
ईरान में मशहद में रहता था, तकरीबन 2011 से मैं वहाँ पे था और बड़ा ही अच्छा दिन गुजरे हैं वहाँ पर। और मैं इंडियन गवर्नमेंट का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया और धन्यवाद कहना चाहता हूँ कि उन्होंने हमारी बहुत मदद की है। बहुत ही ज़बरदस्त नीति है मोदी जी की है और पूरे हिंदुस्तान को इस पर गर्व करना चाहिए कि मोदी जी जिस तरीके से अपने देशवासियों की परवाह करते हैं, उनको देखते हैं कि वो कोई मुसीबत में तो नहीं है और अगर मुसीबत में होते हैं तो उनको अपने देश में वापस बुलाते हैं।
The total number of Indians brought back from Iran has now reached to 2,576. As more Indians return, the government stays relentless in their work to bring back Indian nationals who want to return home.
All right, joining us on the broadcast is Fesan Nabi. He is one of the evacuees that was brought safely back home from the affected area, from the conflict-affected areas. Fesan Nabi, thank you very much for speaking to Republic. Pehli baat, first thing that I want to know from you is how is the situation there where you were stuck?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible, yes.
Thank you. I actually was based in Kerman, Iran. So my university's name is Kerman University of Medical Science. If you ask me about Kerman, it was relatively safe because the most affected areas were Tehran, Shiraz, Isfahan. But if you talk about Kerman, it was relatively safer. But the first, the tensions arose on 13th of June, if I'm not wrong. It was Friday morning, and we woke up. We saw there was bombardment of news that this place has been attacked, this place has been attacked, and that is the day when worry started. Actually, we were very uncertain about the situations. It was unfolding in a different way. Then the first preference that was the embassy gave it to the students of Tehran. Tehran, because since Tehran was very much affected, so the students in universities of Tehran, they were relocated to Qum first. Qum is a religious place in Iran. They were relocated first because at first priority was given to the safety of the students, to safety of the students, followed by the evacuation program. And there was one more university that's known as Urmia University of Medical Science. Urmia is another province in Iran. So they have a border, very near border with Armenia. So the first batch which arrived in India, that was from the Urmia University of Medical Science, and they were evacuated through the border of Armenia. Then it went for the students of Tehran. They were relocated to Qum, and from Qum they were again relocated to Mashhad. We are thankful to even the government of Iran who opened the airspace for the Indian students evacuation. And almost 70-80% of the students were evacuated from Mashhad airport. It was a direct flight of Mahan Air from Mashhad airport till Delhi. And I arrived early in this morning.
All right, Fesan Nabi, thank you very much for joining us here on the broadcast and giving us the details of how the evacuation process was carried out. And with that, that was all that we could pack in this edition of 6 Stories at 6. We will be back tomorrow, same time, with more agenda-setting news. Till then, thank you for watching. Coming up next after the break is Live and Breaking.